Hello YouTube, welcome back to the garage, and welcome back to the Goldwing project. So, in the last episode, we got the brakes put back together and the wheels on and stuff, and we moved on to the rest of the bike while we wait for the rear suspension parts. So first, I'll get the talking points out of the way. The gas cap, the seafoam soak, that worked. I'm not having a problem with the tank pressurizing anymore. The kickstand, I removed the spring to clean this area and the spring and stuff, and this is quite loose, and I don't think that's how it's supposed to be, so I posted in the forums again, and I'm waiting on an answer back on that. Then the throttle cables, also various people gave me different opinions on the forums, and the consensus seems to be that, yeah, something's wrong, so I'm going to see if I can shorten these myself, but don't know yet. And then also, the trunk here, there was tape on this side, which I removed to kind of get a look at whatever damage that was hiding, and turns out basically this entire front piece was, hanging on by a thread basically. This section, this 4 or 5 inches here on this side was the only thing holding on the entire front. It was literally like dangling in the wind, so I did some zip tie stitching along and in some other various places, and it seems to have done the job. So that plus the metal shelf that a previous owner added, this thing, I think that'll do the trick. Okay, so to begin with, here is the lid for the trunk, and here is the travel rack thing, and it obviously goes right here, but these two rear mounting spots are pretty damaged, as you can see. My remedy for that is going to be just some nice large rubber washers that are going to go on either side and then be sandwiched by some metal ones. Alright, so here is one of the shocks, and basically the goal is to replace this oil seal in there because it's leaking. So yeah, I don't remember if it was this one that was leaking or the other, but if I'm going to do one, I might as well do both. So I also got these bushings new. Here's one, here's the other. So I'm just going to pull them out real quick. You can see they're pretty beat up. This one has a metal sleeve in it, so you gotta push that out first. Alright, so to begin disassembling the actual shock, first you would want to remove the rubber boot. I didn't happen to have them, so I didn't really need to. Oh, I'm losing fluid. So there is some fluid in here, and you're going to want to remove as much of that fluid as you can before you begin this process, just to, try to keep things a little bit cleaner than, as possible. But there's a snap ring in here, and you just want to grab that and see if you can't get it out. There you go. Oh my goodness. There it is. There's a little washer in there, and usually just a magnet or something will get it. That's not a very powerful magnet. And now there's plenty of ways to do this next part, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, actually. It's got a rubber thing on it. I'm just going to shove it in there, and I'm going to put air, and I'm going to grab this with a rag and some stuff just to kind of protect my hand and just blow it out. And there it was. Nice. Alright, so there you go, with a nice resounding pop. Everything should come out. And the order that it comes out in is first the oil seal with the cup facing up, then a thin washer, doesn't really matter which way it goes, then this metal cup, again with the cup face going that way, and then this just wire ring. So before you disassemble, I recommend cleaning the outside as best as you can, which I've already done with steel wool and stuff, just so that once you crack it open, you don't get any contaminants or anything in there. And yeah, so right now, just clean everything up and get ready for reassembly. Alright, and then obviously the old oil seal can be just tossed. So to reassemble, get some new ATF, because you're going to have to fill it up anyway. And then what I like to do is just dunk the parts in before you reinstall them. So the first thing to go in is the little wire ring. This probably doesn't need to be dunked, but it slides in there, and then it goes pretty far down, and there's a little ring land that it just snaps right into. And once you've got it in there, you don't need to go any further down, just to the lowest part. Then the next one is the metal cup thing. Again, give it a dip, and remember the cup faces up on the shock, I guess. Just let it slide in, like so. Then, narrow washer. And it probably helps if you open the new part first, but and then the new, this guy. And this is obviously going to be a tighter fit than the other parts. So for this, it's a little bit more important that it goes on straight, because, well, obviously you don't want to damage it, because that's how it leaks in the first place. So for this, so what I do is I put the metal washer on top and kind of hold it in place and just go around and lightly once you're flush, it gets a little bit tougher because, well, you can't really hit it. And a lot of people say that the key is to get some, 1.5-inch diameter PVC, and I happen to have inch diameter, which just fits over. AKA, it's not wide enough. So what I do is I just, take a screwdriver and hit it. It's not optimal, but it's what I got. So I'm actually going to put this in the vise and do that just because it's a little bit easier. And all you have to do is get it far down enough that the ring, that the indentation is visible for this to go on. And then that's the last step, just slide that on and squeeze it in. There you go. That's the shock rebuilt. The next step is to fill it up with fluid, or you could put the bushings in. I'll do that first. Alright, so I just took a second to clear up. So here's what the two bushings look like. There's a short one and there's a long one. The short one obviously goes in the bottom here, and the tall goes up top, and this little sleeve goes into the bottom one. So the way I found success doing this is grease up the bushing just a little bit, you don't need a ton, and then spread it around the entire bushing. And usually just with the grease, that's enough to be able to get it in to the hole by hand. And let me just clean that hole real quick, make sure there's nothing going on in there. And yeah, just squeeze as hard as you can and hope it goes in. However, the hard part is getting this guy in there, because for whatever reason it just wants to either push the bushing out or just push it sideways, and you can't really do it by hand. At least I can't, because it takes too much force. But either way, it's done the same way. You just get some grease on it and try to push it in. Alright, so I got it in. I had to use some sockets to kind of do some pushing And like I said, the hard part is just getting the metal sleeve through without moving the rubber bushing, but if you just mess with it a little while, you can get it to work and just kind of go back and forth like this, side to side. It seems to get the job done. So yeah, now the top one. The top one's like 10 times easier compared. Alright, so the final step, the actual final step, would be to put on the rubber boot here, but if you want to buy the actual Honda part, it's like $30 for each one. So instead, I went on eBay and I found a set of 4 of these kind of universal things for like 10 bucks. And I just cut one, because I didn't need the full length, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it over here and then just zip tie it on either side, and that worked on the other side, so I have no reason to think that it won't work on this side. I'm just going to do this in the vise, because that's how I did it last time, and it's a lot easier that way. Alright, so that's the hard part. Here's the edge of the shock, and I've pulled it like one whole bellows over, and so I'm just going to run the zip tie and then cut it off. Just like that. Now, it's not the prettiest thing, but you're not going to see it, so I'm not too concerned. And there you go, one rebuilt shock. So just give it a wipe down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to install it on the bike before filling up the fluid, because it's kind of hard to syringe the fluid through there, through this air hole. So, or at least it's hard to do that with it off the bike, so I'm going to install it on the bike and then fill it with the ATF. Fast forward a little bit. The shocks I reinstalled, and the refilling with fluid process is a little bit drawn out, so to speak. I had a helper, and basically I was just holding the bike upright and kind of bouncing the back up and down, and they had a syringe and they were just syringing the ATF in, and the total volume I believe is about 10.5 ounces. I was doing in milliliters, so I just filled them both with 260 milliliters. This is the syringe I was using, and yeah, so they're back on, but only for now. I have to take them back off because in order to get the air lines back on, I don't know if this is just me, but I don't like tightening them down like this because the line doesn't actually twist, like, or rather the line does twist, the fitting doesn't twist, so I'm gonna, like, you know, you'll see maybe. And then also I got to replace these O-rings on here just because I might as well, so that's what's next. Alright, so there you go. Those are the shocks fully installed. I have the airlines tightened down with new O-rings, new oil seals, new fluid in there, and if you forget this side, the rear mounting bolt goes down to 51 foot-pounds, and the other side goes down to 17 foot-pounds. Alright, so now I've got the racks on. They're just loosely on. Just want to talk about the progress. So basically you want to put the top rack on first, just because it's easiest that way. It's a washer here and here, and then put the rack on, and you can just hold them on with the nuts temporarily while you get the mounting here and on the other side, and here and on the other side. And once all 6 points are on, or rather once this is mounted at all 6 points, you can back these nuts off and get the lower rack on. And it's kind of a weird puzzle. You have to kind of come on from the back and lower it down. Meanwhile, you have to make sure the your passenger foot pegs are off, and here are kind of not bumping into anything. And once everything's loosely on, as it is right now, you could just go through and tighten everything up. The next step would be to put on the luggage again, but I think I'm going to save that for the next video, because I have this little camera setup thing, like a dash cam type thing for the bike. It's got a front and a rear camera, plus a little screen that you could, I guess, watch your video back or whatever, but I'm going to install that, so I'm going to call it there for this video. So hopefully you learned something about the suspension. It would help you if you're rebuilding your own, plus the install for the rear racks. And yeah, so like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.